You go into your summer program, and now you're into training camp, which all of those stages are critical to the development of your football team. But this is the football part of it that means an awful lot of continuing to develop our guys moving forward. I talked to our team. We had a team meeting earlier, really a lot about mindset and attitude. You make a choice every day you walk in the building to either be a positive guy or a negative guy. A positive mindset and attitude doesn't guarantee you anything, but a negative one does. And you got to have the right kind of mindset going into training camp. And I really like where our football team is. Obviously, we'll see. Everybody will be excited tomorrow for practice 1, but practice 17, 18, we'll see where we are. But to this point, I've been pleased with the attitude and the mindset of our team moving forward. We got an opportunity to get better every day because you never stay the same. You either get better or worse. And our guys have that mindset, and I think really understand what we've got to do. Team and individual goals are great, but not understanding how we achieve those goals and the work that it's going to take to achieve those goals. If you don't understand that process, then it doesn't matter. And I do like the work ethic and the culture of our organization and where it is right now. We've got a staff of 10 assistants and myself that have won 27 conference championships and 10 national championships. So we understand how to win. We understand to get where we want to go. And we need to have a buy-in from this football team and understand it's going to be a difficult physical camp, violent camp, and that's what you got to do to be successful. But looking forward to getting started. Going into camp, if you just had to ask me, concern-wise personnel, not maybe concerned, but interested to see some position battles, the first thing we've got to do is get the young guys ready on both lines of scrimmage up front because they're going to have to play. And a lot of these guys either have been here and haven't played or have just stepped on our campus. And we've got to get those guys game ready for September 1st. That's really important, and that's a critical thing we've got to get accomplished in camp. The safety position. Stephen Montak's the only guy that's really played in a college game at that position. So there's some concerns there. Again, I like our ability. I like the talent level. Just haven't done it. So that's obviously a question mark for you. Quality depth at the linebacker position. I like our talent. I like our ability. Just haven't done it. So we've got to get those guys game ready moving into our season. The competition is going to be fun to watch at running back, receiver, and tight end because I think we've recruited well at those positions, and I'm looking forward to see the competition in those guys and in those position groups to see who's emerged as we move through camp. Obviously, we've got to find a place kicker in that competition. We'll run through camp and a punt returner. And I think the talent and the ability is there, and certainly the competition to me and guys having to strain every day is going to create consistency in their performance, which will make us a better team. Injury front-wise, Brad Johnson and Eldridge Thompson will be limited day-to-day with hamstring from the summer. But both of those guys, I think it's just going to be a couple days. I do not think it's going to be a long-term deal. Levante Valentine's got a strength in his knee. I'm hoping to get him cleared by the middle to end of camp. So he'll be cleared for contact. Jabari Ellis had a scope on his knee. Again, I think it's going to be 3 or 4 days before we get him back. I do not think it'll be long-term. And JT Ebay with his hip, hoping to be cleared to the middle of camp. To get him ready for the opener. Chad Terrell is ahead of schedule with his knee. And probably looking at middle of September, 1st of October to be completely cleared there. 2 guys that will be non-contact, Ben Osbury had knee surgery. I also have put Ben on scholarship, a guy that had a fantastic year for us last year and going into his senior year, certainly deserving in how he played for us last year. But he'll be non-contact till probably middle of camp. And Josh Van had shoulder surgery there from Tucker High School, and he'll be cleared probably about middle of camp as far as for contact. And after that, open up for any questions.
You raise your hand, we'll get a microphone to you.
You mentioned the schedule of camp. Just how does it break down in between doing the offense, doing the defense, starting to look at opponent prep? Do you have those segmented throughout camp?
Well, we spend our off season studying opponents. We take about 2 days, start from back to forward, and work on opponents back in February. As we're watching we finish our cut-ups from the season as we study ourselves. And we start at the end of February, March, April. We come into the summer, and we spend a lot of time studying our opponents and taking notes on our opponents. We just finished up with Coastal yesterday. So that's something that we spend an awful lot of time on as far as game planning for our opponents. As we get into camp, we will not start on Coastal till school starts. We'll spend time working on South Carolina and focusing on ourselves. And that was one of the big things I talked to the guys about in the meeting today. Is it's not about any opponents right now. It's about South Carolina. It's about us getting better and improving every day.
Go to Mike and then Jeff.
Hey, Will, back here. You've said over and over again that this team hasn't accomplished anything yet. I'm wondering what that mindset does for the coaches and players. Do you think you get a better buy-in by preaching that message year after year?
Well, I don't know that. I just think that some people can call it negative. I call it being realistic. It's where we are. And we want to win the East and win our state every year. That's our goal in our program from year 1 to year 3. And we haven't done that yet.
Has Josh Belk joined you yet?
Yes, Josh is a part of our team.
Has he filed a waiver with NCAA?
We have filed a waiver with the NCAA.
How does that process work? What's the timetable? Do you have? Are you optimistic? Do you have any feeling there?
Again, I think that obviously they've been very much more lenient in transfer situations. I think Josh has got a very good case for that, and Chance Miller and our compliance office is working diligently to get that waiver request to the NCAA, and there is no timetable.
And he'll jump in, and you'll practice him as if he's going to be eligible until
Absolutely.
you feel.
Absolutely.
Find out.
Coach, what was the mindset or the thinking behind moving Zach Bailey over to left guard, and how do you assess Blake Camper and what what you expect from him?
Well, I think Blake has really changed his body since he's been here from the last year. And when Zach was injured last year, he played very well at the right tackle position. So he earned the opportunity. Zach played well at the right tackle position. We were not displeased at all, but it's all about getting your best 5 on the field. And Zach, we felt going back and looking at it, was a more productive guard inside as far as movement and things to continue to try and get more surge on the line of scrimmage. And to get our best 5 on the field right now, that's where he needs to be. He also will be a center as well, backup center as well.
Well, what differences, if any, have you seen in Debo's attitude since coming back off the injury? Is he more focused, even more committed, more confident about moving it?
No, not really, from a standpoint, because he's a guy that practices the right way since I've been here. He goes after it all the time. That's why he's a good player. I mean, God's blessed him with a lot of ability, but one of the abilities that he's been blessed with is work ethic. The guy works extremely hard. I think anytime as an athlete, when something's when the game is taken away from you, it maybe personally it means a little bit more to you, but his work ethic's always been outstanding. So I don't really see a change in that, and he's really attacked this all season, and we're looking forward to getting him the ball.
Any update on Javon Charleston's status with the team?
No, Javon, I'm going to let the judicial process take its course, and we'll make a decision after it's over.
Do you have a timeline on that? Do you know when that might be? How would you describe Brian McClendon's personality, and is it different from Kurt's? Does personality something that plays into play calling, do you think?
Well, I think it certainly does. I think Brian's a very upbeat, aggressive mentality, and I think he's done a really good job with our players since he's been here. Number one, as a receivers coach, and changing that room, and the production and the development in that room has been outstanding. And since he's taken over as coordinator, going all the way back to the bowl game, has done an outstanding job with our players. But I would describe him as more of an up-tempo, aggressive mindset.
Coach, you mentioned that the biggest thing is getting the young players ready on both lines of scrimmage. What's the advantage of playing young guys early now that you're entering year 3, and I guess you're starting to see some of the benefits of throwing guys in the fire early on?
Well, we didn't have any choice the first year, so it was what it was. But I think as much as anything, there's some really good examples for them in front of them as far as leadership is concerned, as far as work ethic and how to practice the right way. And understanding that process is really important for a young player. So when you have a young offensive lineman and they see the way Donnell Stanley and our offensive line go about their work ethic, and a young defensive lineman sees Dennis Wanham and our defensive lineman, the way they practice, I think that's really, really important and a great example for a young player.
For evaluating punt return options, will you guys go live at all, and who are some of the main candidates?
It's funny you asked that. We are going to have some live coverage That was one of the notes I had from the season, early in the year, that I felt like we didn't cover as well at times in some punting situations, and we're not as effective in returning punts as well as we needed to. So we will do some live kicks. And obviously when you have an untested returner, which we're going to probably have, it's important to see live bullets. I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to be important. But we got a bunch of guys back there working. Rashad Fenton, Brian Edwards, Keyshawn Nixon's, Debo Samuel. We've got a bunch of guys that are going to be up for the job. And the number one thing is at the end of the play, we've got ball possession. You remember the first year? Oh, yeah. Yeah, me too. So, wow.
Coach, have you kind of established a philosophy as far as how you're going to approach the new red shirt rule, where the kids can play in 4 games? Have you kind of set your own parameters of how you'll implement it with your kids?
Well, we don't make any decision about anyone redshirting until we get to the season. You know, my question after the second scrimmage of fall camp is going to be basically to our staff: is he going to be better as a freshman game 5 than the junior, senior, sophomore in front of him? That's the way I approach it. And if the answer is yes, then we need to play him. And if he can help our football team win games, we're going to play him. We've played more true freshmen than anybody in the country the last 2 years. So with that being said, if we go to the first ball game and we're not really sure if this guy's going to help our football team, the new rule gives you the latitude to say we're going to play the guy in the game. And we've got 4 of those games that we can make that decision. So I think that's how we as a staff have discussed and how we're going to approach it. If he's a guy that we feel like we can count on him to go in and play productive football for us. I think where the rule really helps you is on the back end, where maybe a young man's not ready week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but as he continues to develop, like a Jake Bentley his first year, and all of a sudden you look up and there's 3 games left in your schedule, 4 games left on your schedule, and you've had some injuries at one position, and the old rule you couldn't play him because you burned an entire year. Now you have the opportunity to go play him, and you're not burning an entire year. When I was at LSU in 2001, we played Arkansas. We played Tennessee in the SEC championship game. We lost our 2 corners in the Arkansas game. We had a young man by the name of Travis Daniels. He had to be our 3rd corner going into the game. He had not played all year. And Coach Saban sat down with him and said, we've got to practice the right way. So either you want to play or you don't want to play. It's your call. We're not going to burn your year. He said, no, I want to play. So if we told him, if we had one guy go down, you had to go in the game. Damian James, I believe, went down on the goal line. Travis Daniels goes in first play against Dante Sawworth, knocks the ball off of him inside the 5-yard line. And we ended up winning the game, won the SEC championship, went to the Sugar Bowl. He started against Illinois, but we burned his year on a game and a half. Really, it was about midway through the 3rd quarter. So I think that's where this was really good rule from a standpoint of sometimes when you have some attrition as far as injuries and things are concerned as the year rolls on, now you're able to play a guy. Because a lot of these guys really aren't ready game 1 like they think they are. And they got to continue to develop throughout the year. But I think it's a great rule. I wish it had been in effect a long time ago.
Well, why does Jake succeed in a hurry-up offense? And what are some of the things that Dan has done with Jake to try to limit some of those turnovers that we saw last year?
Well, I think as much as anything, you become accustomed to what you're used to doing. He's been in an up-tempo offense his entire high school career and coming here. And his production in tempo situations has been better than when it's been in a different situation. So that's what you become accustomed to doing. That's what he's used to doing. He's very cerebral. He thinks fast. He's got good mental quickness as far as getting the ball out and making fast decisions. So that's something that I think is going to help him. I think we just, when you have an interception, it could have been on protection, it could have been on the route, it could have been on miscommunication. I mean, there's a lot of things that you go through and you evaluate what we could have done better in those situations. So not all of those were on Jake, and obviously there's some that he would have loved to have had back. But I think you evaluate, and the good thing about Jake is he's very coachable. He's got a coach-me-coach attitude, and as he watches the tape, there's nobody more critical of himself than Jake Bentley, I can assure you of that.
Coach, there's always been expectations and pressure with South Carolina football. How has social media changed the way players feel pressure compared to maybe 20 years ago?
Oh, I don't know. We talked about social media in our meeting today, and it's not going to help us win any games. I can assure you of that. So, be smart about it, and a lot of our guys shut down Twitter during the season, which I think is smart, or social media during the season, which I think is smart, but it's not helping you win any games. I don't know how it affects them. I couldn't answer that question. Maybe we're going to talk to them here in a second. You can ask them.
Are there 2 or 3 or maybe 4 true freshmen that you are most anxious to see and that you go into camp thinking?
I'm anxious to see every single one of them.
Are there some though that you got in your mind already that they're going to have to they're going to play?
I've been doing this over 20 years, and I've gone into over 20 years of training camp, and in my mind had an idea of who I thought was going to help our football team and is going to play a bunch for us. And you know, these guys go through so much. New coach, new system, new atmosphere. They got stuff going on at home. I mean, they're going through a lot. And they come on our campus, and a lot of times playing as a freshman, a lot of times has nothing to do with ability. It has to do with maturity. How they mature in a situation, how they come on campus and handle themselves, how do they get along with their teammates, how do they get along with their position coach. I mean, there's so many variables that I think affect a guy playing, and a lot of time it has zero to do with ability. So I'm excited about seeing all of them play, and we'll determine who's going to be helping our team as we move through training camp.
Coach, can you talk about the addition to Coach Werner to your staff and what you're excited about him bringing to our offense?
Well, a wealth of experience on the offensive side of the ball. I think you track Dan and you look at his development of the quarterback position is as good as anywhere in the country. You look at his background offensively, it's vast. I mean, from a two-back, looks at Miami and the operation there to developing more of an up-tempo attack at Ole Miss, which is what we are moving more to as far as dictating the tempo of the game. So his wealth of knowledge at the quarterback position and then offensively with different backgrounds of things has been really a good help to our offense.
Well, how has Jake developed his leadership skills this offseason? Have you gotten some good reports about what he's done in preparation of this training camp?
Well, I don't know that, you know, I think you improve as a leader in some ways, but I think he's been a natural leader when he got here. And to have the command that he had with our football team going into Game 7, his true freshman year, to be named co-MVP with Deebo Samuel says a lot about the respect he has within our organization. To be only the one of 3 young men in the South Carolina's history of being named team captain by his teammates his sophomore year, to me says an awful lot about the respect and the leadership ability that he has with our teammates. You know, the things that I would tell Jake, you can be more assertive at the end of the day. You know, there's some things we be more assertive as far as, you know, I tell guys all the time, and I told our leadership group today, and I mean this in a very positive way, be very selfish about your season. Because you can be selfish about wanting to be good, wanting to be great, and winning a championship. And don't let anybody else mess up your season. And I think that goes for all of our leaders. Don't let anybody mess your season up. And I think you can be – that's the one thing in our organization, because you can't be selfish about anything else, is about your season.
As you reviewed your run game from last year or even the last 2 years, how often do you feel like y'all ran into a good luck? Like that's what we should have done there. That was okay. We had a decent shot there. And how often did you not?
I thought that, again, you know, success or failure in the run game boils down to either schematically we were wrong or physically we were whipped. And I think there was probably a mixture of both in failure and probably a mixture of both with success. So I think it would be hard to put a percentage, in my opinion, totally on the success or failure of the run game based on those things. I think athletically, girth and strength were better up front on the offensive line than we've been. And I think we do have a talented core of backs. I do think that the tempo will help us in some situations. As I always say, fatigue makes cowards of us all. And when you weigh 300-plus pounds in September heat here, and we're on the ball and going fast because that's what we're used to doing. Again, you get good at what you're used to be able to get on the ball and run some things. And a lot of times in tempo teams, they can talk about physicality all they want to. Half the time the defense doesn't get lined up and they crease them for a 30-yard inside zone and nobody's lined up. And so those are some things that I think are going to help us moving forward.
Thank you. With the Urban Meyer situation unfolding, how do you, as the head coach at South Carolina, deal with being totally transparent, forthright, and honest with issues with your coaching staff or players of the violence nature or anything illegal that could occur within your program?
If you see something, say something. And that's our motto around here. Told our staff again today, and I've told them multiple times since I've been at the University of South Carolina. We are very transparent in everything that happens within our organization. We know exactly who to talk to, whether it's Dr. Carl Wells on campus or Judy Van Horn within our athletic department when we feel like one of those situations arises. So our players understand that, and our staff understands that.
Well, other than Jake, what did you see from the quarterback room this past spring? And even though none of those guys have played, what do you think about the depth at that position?
Well, I feel good about the ability and talent level. Michael's a guy that's the game has slowed down to him. You know, our first year he never got a snap because he tore his labrum in his shoulder. So him coming back now, and Mike throws it extremely well. And he can run our offense, and we can win football games. And I got a lot of confidence in him. Jay and DeCarrion are both guys that are tremendous athletes that give you a lot of different things with their legs. We've got to continue to come on in the decision-making as far as the RPOs and things and in the throwing game. That's where they've got to continue to make some strides. And again, I'm not displeased with anyone.
Do you plan on moving Jemias around some in the secondary this year? And how do you kind of envision that splitting up?
Well, I think it all starts with trying to get the 4, 5, and 6 best guys on the field at a time. And whether that's at corner, safety, nickel, or a defensive back playing the dime position for us, which we've got some body-wise guys that can do that for us now. But we got to find out how to get the best 4 out there. Right now, we think playing jam at safety gives us that opportunity. You know, Taven Jackson's a guy that's going to be able to play safety. He can play nickel. He's also a guy that can still play the corner position because it's not about the next guy on the depth chart. It's about putting the next best player in. So we're going to expose the first 2 weeks as much as we can to our players to make sure that they can play multiple spots. So when you get into a game time situation and you can put a guy at nickel that maybe didn't rep much during the week, but we can still win with him at nickel if we have an injury at the position. So we'll expose our guys to as much of our scheme as we can the first 2 weeks, and then the third week we'll start dialing it back and understanding we got to get ready for game, and let's get our best 4, 5, and 6 guys ready.
What traits does Jemias have that you feel like will make him excel at safety?
Well, he's got really good instincts in man and zone. He's got outstanding instincts. He has a tremendous work ethic. He's extremely bright, and he works really hard at everything he does. He's improved his communication skills, and that's got to be critical for you at the safety position because we've got to be in concert back there as far as the other safety is concerned, the nickel and the corners, and a lot of communication with our linebackers. So we put an awful lot on our Mike, and we put an awful lot on both safeties in our defense from a communication standpoint. But he has all the characteristics you need. He can play in the deep part of the field. He can judge the ball. He can finish on plays. He's a solid tackler in the open field especially. He's a good blitzer. So there's a lot of traits that he has that point that he would be a very good safety.
Beyond Parker, who do you see kind of competing at that kicker spot, and what do some of the other guys bring?
Well, Alex and Shane Himes is a young man that's on our campus now. Those 3 guys will compete through camp, and we'll look at it every day to see from a production standpoint. All 3 are very capable of being our kicker here at South Carolina. We need to improve. At the end of the day, you know, probably cost us a game there early in the year, not being able to convert an extra point and multiple field goals.
What have you seen from DeCarrion Joyner, and any chance that he sees the field in certain special packages this year?
Well, again, that'll be determined in training camp. At the end of the day, we need to be productive as an offense, and if he's one of our best 11 offensively, then certainly there's going to be an opportunity for that, and that has yet to be determined until we work through camp. What I've seen with DeCarrion is a guy that's got off-the-charts leadership ability that positively affects everyone around him. You can see why at 15 years old he won the state championship at Fort Dorchester High School right here at Williams-Brice, because he has the uncanny leadership ability to positively affect everyone around him. He has that kind of charisma, and that's certainly what you want at the quarterback position. So, again, we're excited about him, and we'll see how it works through camp. And if he can help us win football games, and that goes for Jay Urich, that goes for everybody, and that's not just for DeCarrion.
Coach, you were talking about the secondary communication and all being in concert. How do you handle graduate transfers like Nick and JT and having to maybe move them along with more urgency given it's their final year?
Well, I think both guys, first of all, are extremely bright. And you can see that when we had some meetings during the summer, which now by NCAA rules we're allowed to do. So extremely bright guys that can learn what we do. They'll be fine. I'm not worried about them as far as those things are concerned. Both guys have urgency about what they do and how they do things. Both guys work extremely hard at the game, and now with the new rules, we were able to teach a lot of different things to these guys this summer. So now as we head into fall camp, we've really been through about our first 4 or 5 installations. So they're able to really retain well, they communicate well, and I'm not worried about their learning ability.
You mentioned the tight end position. How comfortable are you with those guys in that room? And I guess in an up-tempo, aggressive kind of offense, is there a mold, a physical kind of thing that you look for in a tight end, like a guy with Hayden's size or someone smaller, maybe like KC?
Well, I wouldn't say KC's small. I mean, okay. Took a shot at my guy there, man. But KC blocks extremely well at the point of attack. You know, in tight ends nowadays, what's really hard is this. Sometimes you get a guy that's going to block the C area, but he couldn't beat me down the middle of the field, and that's not good, all right? Or guys that are strictly receivers, and they won't block anybody. So right now, and I think we've got a good combination of guys. KC's a guy that can block at the point of attack, and he's also a tremendous threat in the passing game. The thing that KC does is he catches a lot of contested passes very well. And they may have him covered, but he's going to catch the football. He's got really good ball skills. Jacob has really enhanced his game as far as catching the football, but has always been a guy that's been strong at the point of attack. You know, Will Register blocks extremely well. We got to continue to bring him on. Evan Henson needs to improve his blocking, but is a dominant guy in the passing game as far as just athletically the things he brings us. Keel Pollard does a lot of different things for us as far as a guy that's catches the ball extremely well, but has really developed his game and come on as far as being a C area blocker that's done some really nice things for us. So again, at that position, I feel good about the 6 guys we've got, the depth that we have at the position, and we need to continue to bring those guys on. Kyle Markway's healthy for the first time since we've been here, and we need to keep him healthy. But the guy works extremely hard in the weight room. Again, a good C area blocker, continues to evolve in the passing game.
Well, a lot of talk last year about Javon, shedding that weight and being able to play through that. Now that he's at a good weight, and what do you expect from him this season, and how capable is he of getting that?
Well, I think just continue to develop yourself as a player. And, the guy's been through an awful lot as far as being at Goose Creek, going to Jones, battling through all that, getting here, coming in at 340 and working himself to, in the middle of the year, became a really good defensive tackle. And I just think continue to develop, stay hungry. I challenged him in the offseason he's got to get stronger, and he's gotten stronger. He has worked extremely hard. But everything we've challenged him with, everything we've asked him to do, he does. And that was the big thing, and just continuing to understand and have knowledge of what we do defensively, because I think that always helps you when you have a better understanding of not just what to do, but why we're doing it. And he's worked at all those things, so we're expecting a big year out of him.
You mentioned kind of the summer meetings. For the guys that haven't taken the field for you guys yet, how much can you learn about them and get a feel for them as players through kind of the summer process as compared to how much you're about to learn about them, getting them on the field?
Well, there's only so much you can do in shorts. You can teach. You can see how a young man retains information. Can he regurgitate the information back to you so you make sure he does understand it and have a concept of what we're talking about? We can take them through drills and different things that we try and do to simulate the game as best we can, but you got to get out there and play the game. But I think as much as anything is just finding out how a guy learns, and if he's able to retain the information day to day from what we talked about the day before, and then how hard is he willing to work day to day on the next thing. So I think there's challenges that we try and give them during those times that we're able to meet with them in the summer to see how they learn. And I think that seeing some of the guys that were asked about earlier, I've been very pleased with.
It seems like Shamik has taken some baby steps over the course of his career. Did you see anything from him in the spring or the summer that leads you to believe he's going to take a big step this year?
Yeah, we need him to contribute for us. on the defensive line. You know, for us to be able to play Kier Thomas both inside and outside. Shamik's a guy that's got to develop for us to play defensive end for us, and I thought he's made good strides for us. He needs to continue to.
Will, does TJ take over that playmaking leadership role on defense, maybe that Sky had while he was here?
I thought he played pretty good last year. I mean, hey, take another shot at my guy, man. You guys are out today, huh? Man. But TJ played well for us last year. TJ made all the calls for us last year. TJ, you know, you could say was the vocal leader last year and is again this year. But he's played really good football for us. He has the right kind of demeanor and mentality that I want at Mike linebacker. But a guy that's, you know, extremely bright, smart, practices the right way, positively affects the guys around him. But I've been very pleased with TJ and his leadership and his development since he's been here at South Carolina. I'm expecting a big year from him.
Now that you've been through a year of the early signing period, do you adjust how you recruit in season? Is it more younger guys maybe set up official visits in the spring and summer, or do you like now that you've been through a full season of the early signing period in December and how you have to recruit during season?
I don't think it matters if I like it or not. I think we're here. It's here to stay. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't. You know, we had some spring visits that I thought went fine, and that's part of, you know, where we are now. I think the recruiting calendar has moved up. More decisions are being made earlier. It's tough with the dead period in July because you don't get them 4 days before August 1st, and it's dead again. So now, if you didn't get them on campus in late July or June, you don't see a guy again until September 1st, which is difficult. I think the official visits, you try to make them as effective as they, based on the prospect, and I don't think it's all. If a guy is from further away, I want him to experience Williams-Brice Stadium. That's one of the attractions to come and play football here and still be able to see our academic environment, our social environment, our spiritual development. I mean, all of those things to be able to still do on an official visit during the season. If a young man is closer to here, I don't really want to official him during the season. I'd rather wait till December or January and official him then because they can come to as many games as they want to. So I think it's all based on the prospect and based on what we think and the prospect think and maybe the family and the people that are helping him make a decision on when is the best time to bring them on campus. I don't like officials during the season as much because I don't get to spend as much time with them. You know, I'm a little concerned about something happening on Saturday afternoon. So it's a little tougher during the season, but we make it work, and our staff does a really good job of adjusting to those visits.
Coach, you mentioned the excitement to start training camp at the start of this all. When you look into a camp and think of the goals that you run through in your experience, seeing what you've gotten out of a team then at the end of the season, what are the highlights of what you look for that separate squads from others in the past?
Well, I think just the day-to-day focus, daily focus on meetings, daily focus on walkthrough, daily focus on practice, improving every single day. The positive mindset of coming to practice every day to improve. Those are all things to me that are intangible qualities that good teams have. The good teams understand how to compete, how to practice the right way. We're going to talk about our practice tempos tonight and how we practice. I think that's essentially important to understand. You can't be on the ground. I mean, you got to. I mean, all those things to me are really important to have the kind of team you want to have, and those are the characteristics we look for.
Will, compared to a year ago, in your overall vision of where you want this program to ultimately be, how much farther along would you describe your own feeling about it? Is it right now from where it was at this exact time last year?
Well, we're a lot better than we were our first year. It's not even comparable. We've made tremendous progress. We've got better players in our program. At the end of the day, recruiting is the lifeblood of your program. You know, that's the most important thing you do, and it's three-pronged. It's the evaluation process of it. It's the recruitment and then the development. And I think our staff does an outstanding job of developing guys when they get on our campus and coaching guys. And I think that's been, pretty evident to see each year young players playing at a very high level. That says a lot about our staff and also the commitment of the young man. But we've made progress, and, I'm excited about this football team. I mean, I see a lot of the intangible qualities that you need to have a good team. Does that mean we're going to have a good team? No. We need to have a good training camp, and that's what we're focused on right now.
you mentioned earlier that you had made note from last season that you wanted to go more live and punts this year. Did you? Can you share with us any other notes that
No.
you may want to change?
No. I think there's just, there's some, different things you tweak a little bit every year. I think when you go through your tape from the previous season, you evaluate. My whole deal with our coaching staff is put the guys in situations to be successful. If the guy can't cover a bucket of water, we don't be playing man-to-man. That's not very smart in my opinion. So we got to put the guys in situations to be successful. And I think the evaluation of our players by our staff, the evaluations of our scheme and what we're doing, are we putting the guys in the best situation to be successful? We've tweaked, here and there on both sides of the ball and in special teams. And then I look at practice-wise of what we're doing. Is it taking advantage to help our football team be the best it can be? And if it's changing up some periods of how we do things, then that's what we're willing to do. But I think you've got to continue to evolve and self-evaluate all the time and be willing to get out of the need to be right. You don't have to be right all the time. You can look back and go, you know what, that probably was a mistake. We need to look back at that and go through that. And I think that we got a very good staff that's, they're not a bunch of yes guys. They're willing to tell you we need to look at this a different way. Now, I've got a much different perspective than they do because I'm looking at the big picture. I'm not just looking at it from an offensive perspective or defensive perspective. I'm looking at it what's going to help our football team. But again, I think you take input from your staff and the people you trust.
Well, getting back to social media for a second, you get fans pretty excited when that Spurs Up moniker goes out.
Right.
How did you guys come up with that, and what kind of feedback have you gotten from supporters about when they say it?
My wife came up with Spurs Up. We're in the Big 12, and everybody's got a hand signal, and they got a saying, And she said, we need one here. So I said, what do you want? She said, Spurs Up sounds good to me. I said, that sounds great to me. So wanted to have a way to let our fan base know that a young man wanted to be at South Carolina, and so we kind of came up with that. It was her idea, and we've kind of run with it. And I think that people obviously are, especially Gamecock fans, are excited whenever they see that and excited about an addition to our family.
With the new rule in the NFL about avoiding leading with the crown of your helmet, what's your opinion on it? How do you coach it better here in college? And what do you think? Do you think your guys did a good job of avoiding that on the field last year?
I think for the most part, I think that, having played the game, there's sometimes it happens. It's a bang-bang play, and it's a very difficult call for the officials to make, and they're always going to err on the side of safety, which they should, okay? But we don't talk in terms of involving the head in any tackling that we do. We try and take the head out of the game. Everybody used to talk about get your head across the bow. That came from Coach Roll when he was at the University of Washington. And Coach Campbell, I bet you didn't know that, but get the head across the bow of the boat. That's how that was taught. And we don't involve the head with tackling anymore. That's not something we talk in terms about. We talk in terms of obviously seeing what you hit, bow the back of your neck, all right. But you got to see what you hit. But when we're talking in terms of tackling, we're trying to get the head out of the tackle. It's more about leverage now. What your leverage is, take advantage of your leverage, and keep your leverage.
Coach, can you talk with us for a moment about the defensive line prospects that you've got in and then about your defensive line overall for this upcoming season?
Well, I think that, we talked about Javon a little earlier, but has been a good inside player for us. Keir Thomas gives us a lot of position multiplicity from a guy that can play end, can play tackle, can play nose. Keir's up to about 280 now, but he's gotten stronger. He's in good shape, and I like where he is. Kobe Smith, I thought, had a really good spring. A guy really developed himself and is a very dependable guy. At end last year, Aaron Sterling had a fantastic freshman year for us. He played extremely well, especially late in the year. Shameik Blackshear continues to make strides where we need to, he needs to be able to guy that needs to get more snaps for us this year. Dennis Wanham can play the buck and in for us. He gives us a lot of position variety there. Bryson Allen Williams probably is our best edge rusher. Really hurt us last year when we lost Bryson. We lost a lot of speed off the edge and a guy that can really threaten a tackle with speed. But he's a guy coming back that will play the Sam and the buck for us. Danny Fennell, I thought, as the year wore on, and played an outstanding game against Michigan in the Outback Bowl, made a bunch of plays for us. Brad Johnson, a guy that started for us last year in some games in our Rabbits package. So all of those guys that have been here, we're excited about. And again, the younger guys, I want to see them develop in camp. Some of them were here in the spring with us. Tyreek Johnson did some nice things. J.J. Mbari did some nice things. And we'll continue to see which of those guys can develop and help our football team.
Coach, Marcus Lattimore can't carry the football anymore for you, but what do you see him doing? How can he help your program now?
Well, he helps our program every single day. He has as much an impact on each young man in our program that myself or any of our assistant coaches have. His presence in our program since he's been here has been as strong a presence that in any assistant coach that I've ever hired, as far as the positive impact he's had on our program. And he makes a difference in our program every single day. He has walked the walk as far as the good times, as far as the tough times. He's been in the hallways, he's been on the campus, and there's no one that can talk in terms of being a Gamecock better than Marcus Lattimore can. And when your players walk up to you and say thank you for hiring Marcus Lattimore, that says an awful lot to me about the impact he's making on their lives. And he makes a difference in our program every single day.
For DJ Wanham in his game that you'd like to see this season?
Well, DJ's really challenged him to continue to improve his strength, to continue to get separation. Some of the 300 plus pound guys that have more girth on them, to be able to hold the point better at the point of attack. Continuing to work on those things, work in some space coverage stuff that we do some with him. I think one of our best personnel groupings will be regular with Bryson at Sam and DJ at the buck position. To be able to have two hard edges with big guys, physical, violent guys on the edges, I think it's going to be good for us, so we can set better edges on the perimeter throw game as far as the bubbles and the quick screens and such. So, but those are things he's worked on in the all-season program to continue to take the next step as a player. All right, thank you. All right, where are we going now?